Welcome everyone to Rising Out of the Chrysalis Stories That Inspire with Marisa Grace, where we share life stories of struggle and triumph, not only of my own life experiences, but also through the experiences of my own guests, as a way to help you have breakthroughs and find hope in your own life. Welcome everyone. I'm Marisa Grace, and today I have a very special guest, JONATHAN ROYLE, who has an amazing, aspiring story to share with all of us. Welcome, JONATHAN. So happy to have you here.
Hi, Marisa. Thanks for inviting me on.
So, JONATHAN, your story is pretty interesting because it started early on in childhood, where you're kind of exposed, you were kind of in a celebrity in the eye of the public, performing in front of the public. And through that experience, a lot of things happened that affected you, mentally and emotionally. So please share that. Tell us really how it all started and how that experience all kind of developed into where you are now.
I'll give you some of the significant traumatic highlights along the way, because I don't want to keep people for the next 3 days going through all of it. Well, some of the really significant stuff. So yeah, as flippant as it may be, the way I'm saying that's only possible for me to do now with a smile on my face because of the healing work and therapeutic treatment.
Absolutely, because
I've done.
it's hard, if we haven't healed through that, it's hard to talk about it. Even after the healing process, when we start, speaking about, those painful moments, I think the more we speak about them, the easier it becomes to speak about them over time. But, even after you healed, it's still kind of a little hard to share that. So thank you for coming on and sharing these painful moments that may help somebody, that might be struggling as well.
Some of these things are going to sound a bit batshit crazy, but I promise you they are totally true, and you can independently research them on the internet. It's just they sound stranger than fiction. So, I mean, start at the beginning. I was born on the 13th of August, 1975. So I turned 48 in August this year, to give you a kind of timeline on things. And I was born when my parents were travelling with Gandhi's Circus here in England, which circus is all around. Gandhi's is one of the biggest in England. And my dad's a circus clown, known as Tizzy the Clown, and my mum was known as Marianne Montana, the sharp, get a new set of teeth, sharp shooting cowgirl, doing like the rope spinning and sharp shooting, kind of like Buffalo Bill type act. And my dad also did a fakir. I didn't swear. That's Fakir, fakir act, which is like the going up ladders of daggers, dancing on broken glass, fire eating, and that kind of weird stuff. So I was born into that environment, and therefore, as is normal on the circus, people learn each other's acts in case there's injury, and then somebody can step in and the show can carry on, as it were. Also, the kids are encouraged to get involved as young as possible. So before I turned 4, when I was about 3.5, just over 3.5 years old, pre-Christmas 1978, I made my stage debut as Flap the Clown, Britain's youngest paid circus clown. And if people want to see embarrassing photographs of me at that age, you can find them on magicalguru.co.uk. Yes, that little kid with the big grey wig, the glasses, and the big red nose. That was me. Which was fine being in a circus environment, because obviously the other circus kids, to them, it was normal that other circus kids did circusy type things. So from a very early age, I got conditioned to an audience clapping and laughing at the right times, which felt good. It was great for my ego and my self-esteem and whatnot. That imprinted upon me at that early age. However, a couple of significant traumas early on. At the age of 4, I was playing hide and seek on the circus with the other circus kids. And I went and hid under what I didn't realise at the time, or wasn't consciously paying attention to, was the lion tamers' caravan living quarters. And I didn't know that underneath his caravan, chained up, was a baby puma. And this baby puma was obviously, I don't know if I was more shocked and surprised to see it, or it was more shocked and surprised to see me as I crawled underneath this caravan. And it proceeded to think this was some kind of game. I'm assured that it, being a baby, probably thought it was a game, because otherwise it'd be more likely that I wasn't here. And as it was, had I not been rescued as rapidly as I was, clearly screaming, I probably would have died that day. But what did happen instead is, it's not probably that clear, but I'm going to try and, I'm not sure if it's clear on camera or not, but I do have scars on my head where the claw marks were, and scars on my back. And this ear, my left ear, but obviously it's mirrored, where I've got the, I'll come in, hearing aid, which is somewhat smaller than my other ear. It's actually a bit smaller. That's because it was ripped off by the puma and had to be reattached. So you can imagine, as a 4-year-old, that was something of a quite traumatic experience. Then twice a day, because we did 2 shows a day, also after that, for a period of time, the Brook Bond PG chimps. Now, if you're in America, you may not know these, but if you go on YouTube and type in Brook Bond T monkey adverts or chimpanzee adverts, in the 70s and 80s, they had adverts where the chimpanzees were dressed up as humans and they dubbed voices over to advertise this tea made by PG Tips. And one year, these chimpanzees and their trainer, Billy Day, came touring with Gandhi's Circus. And me and my dad would be making our way to the ring doors or the wings on the stage if we were in a theatre sometimes. And so we'd be getting ready to go on after the act that was on stage, and the chimps had just been on performing. So they were making their way back to the dressing room. And Billy Day would have hold of Chimp's hands on both sides. And as we walked past, he'd invariably say to my dad, "Hi, Tiz." Tizzy the clown. "Hi, how are you doing?" And my dad would turn and say hello to Billy. "Hi, Billy." And in that moment, that split second, when their attention was distracted, one of the chimps would whack me around the side of the head. And invariably, every day I'd go, "Dad, he's done it again." Now, I am reassured, as I've grown up as an adult, that chimpanzees have enough strength that, had it been anything other than playful, probably because I was about the same size in height, that it would have had enough strength that with one hit round the head, it probably caused brain damage and potentially killed me. So apparently it was just being playful. However, I didn't know that as a kid. So this, to me, perceptively, was the start of bullying. I'm getting bullied every day, twice a day, by chimpanzee, for Christ's sake.
Oh my goodness.
But then it gets worse, because my mum decides, because she's not from a show business background, that we should settle down and get a house. My dad will carry on traveling with the circus, but then I'll just go at weekends, school holidays, evenings, if the show's near enough by, and perform then. Because she wanted me to have a normal, whatever normal is, upbringing. So by the time I'm 6 and a bit, I'm at a normal school. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends how you look at it, I was still getting featured in newspapers. So, for example, British national daily newspaper, the Daily Mirror, ran an article in 1981 when I was 6 that was headed "Alex the Circus 6 Hit." And people can see that on the resume page of my website, magicalguru.com, or any of the newspaper archives sites, because this does sound batshit crazy. I encourage people to check this out for themselves, that I'm telling the truth. So as I was getting media publicity, the teachers at that school discovered that on a pro rata basis, on an hourly rate basis, I was effectively earning more per hour than them. I obviously wasn't working as many hours as them, but pro rata, and jealousy crept in, and resentment, and they made my life hell at that school. So much so that I begged on numerous occasions for us to move because there was only one school in that village. Eventually, before I turned 8, we did move to another town and went to another school. And I'm delighted to say that the bullying from teachers immediately ended, and the teachers at that school in Haywood were the best you could imagine. They were encouraging of my performance stuff. They were encouraging on a normal academic level. They were just fantastic. You couldn't have wanted for better teachers. So any teachers from St Luke's C of E School in Haywood from circa 1982 onwards, thank you. Especially the headmaster, Peter Badley. He was so awesome. He went on holiday once and came back and he bought me a magic trick, and he knew my hobby was magic and conjuring. And I was starting to segue into that performing wise rather than the clowning, because unfortunately at this school, what happened, teachers were great, but when I got publicity in the newspapers, doing shows, jealousy, resentment, me being the odd one out because I was a circus clown's son and from a circus, and also had ginger hair. I shave it short purposely, but I had ginger hair as well, another bullying target. I got bullied on a daily basis by loads of the kids at the school. And that did continue. And whoever said sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me, was talking complete and utter bullshit, excuse the language. Words are weapons, and they cut and wound you, especially through repetition on a daily basis. So my quest to find answers to try and escape this mental torture, and the voice inside my head has started saying, you're not good enough, these people must be right, you're not worthy. And yeah, I suppose looking back on it, I was suffering depression, anxiety, other labels that could be given, but things weren't good. So I rebelled in my head, because I in my head, this was all caused by me being a circus clown and coming from a circus. So I refused, by the time I was about 9, 10 years old, to ever perform as Flap the Clown again. And off came I refused to do it. But by then I'd developed my magic skills. And I was addicted to an audience clapping and laughing at the right times, because that made me feel loved and appreciated and worthwhile. The direct opposite of the mental torture of the bullying. So I still needed to perform. So I started doing the magic professionally so I could be performing. But that still caused me to get publicity, so amplified the bullying until, thank the Lord, in the library, in the adult library where I went, my mum had got me permission to take books out of the adult section of the library, even though I wasn't old enough, because my conjuring magic skills had gone beyond the level of what the books were in the kids' library. And where the sports and pastime section is, with the Dewey library numbering system that's used around the world, literally to the right-hand side was the popular psychology and self-help section. And I saw the spine of a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I thought, this could be the answer. Because if I knew how to win friends and influence people, I could influence those bullies to no longer bully me and be my friends. Well, I got the book and I read it, and spoiler alert, as someone who was somewhere between the age of 10 and 12 at the time, don't remember exactly, it gets blurred around that stage. I can tell you that what's in the book as an adult works, and it works reasonably well with other adults if you apply common sense, don't take it too literally. But as a 10 to 12-year-old, attempting to use the techniques on other 10 to 12-year-olds, it really doesn't work. In fact, it made things worse, if anything. However, a path had begun, because I suddenly realized there were books about things that could help you. And I, a little later, got a book. Well, no, it was much later. I need to tell you this one other step before I found the book that changed everything positively. Don't worry, there's light at the end of the tunnel, people. Mm-hmm. Things got so bad with that little voice inside the head going, perhaps they're right, perhaps you're not worthy, you know, all this. That one day in the wintertime, fall, as I think it'd be called in America, where it gets darker quicker, I lay down in the middle of the busiest main road where I lived, figuring at any moment, boom, traffic wouldn't see me. Don't think I need to be too graphic. I figured everything would be over with.
So, Jonathan, I have a question. At what age do you think that you developed the depression?
I think it probably started very rapidly from around the age of 6 when I started getting bullied by the teachers at that first proper school, and that it just became compounded and worse on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis.
Because you weren't getting the same reaction that you were getting when you were performing. There was no clap. It was the opposite of the clapping and the cheering.
Complete polar
opposite.
And it was the repetition constantly. So yeah, I would say it started around 6, but carried on to the point where I'm nearly 12 and lay down in this road and lie there for what seems like forever. But you know, you can sometimes go out with a friend you've not seen for ages, and then suddenly you look at your watch and 3 hours has gone, but it seems like 5 minutes.
Right.
And conversely, we have times in life where we can go into a meeting and it seems like we've been in there for an hour, and we get out and we look and it's only been 5 minutes. Well, time is a weird thing perceptually. It seemed like forever, but it probably was only 30 seconds or a minute. But in any event, it was still unusual that no traffic had come. This was the busiest road in Heywood. So I gave up and I stood up and I started walking back to the sidewalk. I put my foot on the pavement, for those people in England, but sidewalk in America. And the moment I did, I felt a massive draft and heard a massive whoosh. And I turned my head and I saw a big articulated lorry had gone past. And in that second, I realised that if I'd have still been in the road, that would have been the end of it. But I also realised and thought to myself, you know what? I'm glad that I wasn't still laying in the road. There must be a better way of dealing with this. And in later years, I came across stories of people who'd survived jumping out of multi-story buildings. And those people who did survive doing such all commonly said a similar thing, which was that the moment they jumped out of the window of the multi-story building, they immediately realized they only had one issue in life, and that one problem was that they just jumped out of a multi-story building. Put things massively in perspective. So I was lucky. It didn't end that day. And very shortly afterwards, I was even luckier to see a book called Day by Day in Every Way by Émile Coué, a French gentleman who's no longer with us. He's famous for, he's probably the founder of the law of attraction and The Secret, arguably in many ways, because he popularized positive self-affirmations. His most famous being, day by day, in every way, I'm feeling and getting better and better. And studies have been done to show that if you say that to yourself at least a dozen times, first thing in the morning when you wake up and you're in what is known as the hypnopompic state, that's the state where you're still half asleep, you've not quite woken up. And just before you go to sleep, that state from you started yawning, you're not fully with it, but you've not gone fully to sleep yet, that's called the hypnagogic state. For those time periods where your critical faculty, analytical area of the brain is asleep, it's not on duty. It enables those positive affirmations to go into your personal laptop computer, aka your unconscious, subconscious mind, your imagination. And after repetition, in the way the repetition over days, weeks, months, and years have made me feel bad, through repetition of days, weeks, months, it can help you improve your self-esteem and whatnot. So I started using those techniques, and sure enough, it did give me more resilience and made me feel better about myself, but the bullying was still going on. But then, also from Émile Coué, I discovered a thing called, well, two things. One called the law of reversed effort, also known as what resists persists. You get more of what you focus on in life. Now, this also explains why sometimes people consciously go, I hope, I no longer want to be poor. I hope I get richer. But the phrase in the affirmation's wrong, because that's entertaining the possibility that it might not happen, and entertaining the possibility they may remain poor or unhappy. So you get more of what you focus on. So actually, you're not focusing there on becoming richer or happier. You're actually giving your mind suggestions you'll carry on being poor. Whereas if you phrase it such that it's along the lines of day by day, in every way, I continue to get happier and richer. It's not saying it's a miracle happening that's unbelievable for the conscious mind to take on board. It's saying that day by day, things are incrementally going to get a little bit better. So it can be believable. And any little success in life can be a signpost of, oh, something good has happened. Yes, it can happen again. And then there comes a point where it snowballs and it just improves on so many levels. There's also the law of reversed effort, which is, I sum it up as Yoda in Star Wars saying, do or do not, there is no try. Because the word try implies that you could fail. So you have to do it or don't. But don't try because you're more likely to fail. And I suddenly, in the moment, thought, I've got nothing to lose here. So what I did is this. The next day at school, when the school bully came up towards me and normally pinned me against a wall and started mouthing off so that they insult me galore and their gang would laugh at their leader before he then hit me and walked off and the gang walked off laughing, I did what's known in NLP as a pattern interrupt. Namely, I did something that did not fit the pattern or routine that that bully expected. And the moment they went towards me to pin me against the wall, and they did manage to pin me against the wall, but I, rather than just standing there silently and thinking, hurry up, say your hurtful things and then hit me and go away, hoping it'd be over and done rapidly, I immediately went, what are you waiting for? Stop. Don't even bother with your nonsense comments today. Why don't you just hit me if you're going to do it? Try and hit me now. Go on, try. And in that moment, I saw their eyes kind of
surprise,
glaze over. And I realized that what the book had talked about, them going into a state of disorientation and confusion, their mind trying to work out what's going on, because this isn't the pattern of what normally happens. This doesn't make sense, was happening to them. And suddenly they let go of me. And they still looked dazed and confused. And they walked off, turned to their gang and said, come with me, type of thing. And just turned to me and said, effing stay away from me. Don't effing come near me. But I had no intentions of doing. They never came near me again. I can't fully explain in words that state of disorientation, confusion, shock, what the hell's going on that they must have gone through at that moment. All I know is it's the day when I realised that words don't just have to be weapons that can wound like the bullies had done to me, but they can be things that cause a positive change in life, because the bullying from there stopped that day. Now, don't get me wrong, when I went into the adult world, like school, I still experienced some jealousy from people that saw me performing as a, by then, stage hypnotist and magician. Now, the thing is, at the age of 14 in 1989, also wanting to seek answers to my own issues, I'd taken a hypnotherapy course, and I became the youngest ever member of the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists here in England, as founded by Dr. Brian Howard. And so good it was, that course, that in later years, I kind of did a Victor Kayan, the shaver guy. I actually bought the company and the training organisation off Dr. Brian Howard, and I now teach that exact course, but with extra stuff as well, through my website, ultimatehypnosiscourse.com.
So,
but
Jonathan, how was that possible for you at 14 years old?
I lied.
I
lied about my age until I passed. Now, when I passed, I came clean and said, I'm not 18. I'm 14. And yes, Brian was angry I'd lied, but he also understood why I'd lied, because he said I was correct that if I'd applied saying I was 14, they wouldn't have even let me take the course, let alone take the exam.
Right.
But he said, the fact is, you did take the course, you did take the exam, and not only did you pass it, but you passed it with a massively high mark. He said, so, you know what? He issued me another diploma with my correct date of birth on and whatnot. and he became one of my greatest supporters, and talked to local newspapers about me and stuff, and it helped me get my first clients. And I did start treating clients in 1989, and I've been doing it ever since. But what I forgot to do was to carry on treating myself. I got distracted, and because of that, in my mid to late teens, I did the residue of stuff that had not been fully dealt with from childhood traumas. I've only scraped on some of them. Did manifest itself by me drinking too much alcohol, smoking cigarettes, smoking cannabis, taking cocaine, sometimes gambling, and the world of hedonism and whatnot, as an escape from those internal conflicts. But before I went into my, what do they call it? Before I went into my 20s anyway, so I'm leaving the teen years, I did work on myself. I did a lot of inner child work to unfreeze those frozen in time traumatic imprints that were there at different stages of upbringing, and a whole bunch of other healing techniques and things to delete all the negative programs and install kind of metaphorically antivirus software for the mind. And I'm glad to say that I did stop smoking. I did stop taking cannabis, cocaine. I did stop drinking too much, and basically got my shit together, excuse the phrase, but I'm sure it's one that many people could relate to, and felt a lot better about myself, and finally felt as a human being loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued, which meant that had a positive effect on my self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem, and self-control, aka willpower, which in turn helped me heal my levels of self-respect, self-love, self-worth, and positive selfishness, meaning you've got to look after yourself to be any good at helping anyone, which ultimately helped repair my self-identity and make me feel whole again, to fill that gap that previously was getting filled, which was getting filled through drinking too much alcohol or escaping from it through drugs or whatever. Or the only time where I previously was able to feel normal and worthwhile without those crutches was when I was getting the applause and love from an audience. Yeah. But fortunately now it's balanced out, I'm glad to say.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that, you work through those things. And it's quite interesting. When you were 14 and going through that course, did you feel, okay, this is, I'm going to, because a lot of times, individuals such as myself, we end up going into a practice of healing, whatever modality that is. You could be a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or any type of healing modality, because oftentimes we come from a childhood that's broken, or we have hurt within us that we haven't healed, and we kind of seek these things that, okay, I'm going to go and help other people, right? We have that need to go help others. But I think in the background, psychologically back there in the background, it's really our inner child seeking healing. But we interpret,
without a doubt,
interpret it as, okay, if I go into this, if I become some type of healer, become a doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, hypnotherapist, Reiki, whatever that is, and help others, I think somewhere in the background is like, I'll heal myself as well through that process, but not consciously being aware of it.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, Sigmund Freud, or Sigmund Freud, as perhaps better known, I believe once said, most therapists are merely people searching for answers to their own problems.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I've got all the answers and I'm perfect. Far from it. There's unexpected things happen in life, but I do now have a massive toolkit of things that over the years I've developed and found work with clients and also on myself, so that when something happens that maybe in the past would have caused me extreme anxiety or stress or unhappiness, I can now reframe it and feel calm and relaxed in those situations and look at it from a different perspective, so that ultimately end up getting a different result. Because life is a continual learning and evolving experience, and the healing process is one that has to carry on. You don't heal yourself and then that's it, it's done for life, because there's outside influences of life happening all the
Absolutely.
time.
I
There's got
totally agree, because it is life is a continuous learning experience, right? And we are gonna have challenges regardless of what state you're in. Those challenges are just part of your life's journey. You're gonna meet those challenges, and um, what's important is that once you heal, you do have those tools. You get those tools to help you through those challenges. Being healed doesn't mean those challenges go away,
precisely.
because those challenges are just part of life. Everybody has challenges. Some of them are more challenging than others. What one individual experience is different from another, but we all experience challenges. But the important thing is that through the healing process, we learn how to deal with these things, so that next time we go through a challenge, we can go through it more smoother,
And
rather
one of
than
the biggest parts of that healing process I found most powerful and useful with clients and with myself, which is why in my book, one of the most important sections is where the picture of the baby is, and it's headlined "Making Peace with and Healing Your Inner Child." It's a metaphor, but it's a metaphor that works, because all those little mini traumas, I call them, as a child, and it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to have been mauled by a puma or hit by a chimpanzee or been in a car accident or sexually abused. It doesn't have to be that traumatic, although for some people, unfortunately, it is, or was rather. But it can just be things that it could just be the child, 3-year-old at the party playing with the balloons, and their favourite red balloon gets popped by accident. But to them, that is massively traumatic, because their imagination was imagining it was a spaceship or whatever. We might laugh about that as adults and go, why are they getting so upset about a balloon? There's other red balloons there. Well, no, it's that red balloon. It was that special red balloon, that attachment. The child ego state and child that Jung spoke about, and the child state of mind is traumatized by that. The adult would think nothing of it, but the child isn't. It gets imprinted into the laptop computer, the unconscious, as a trauma, and that affects the way that child reacts to other things in the future.
Yeah, it becomes part of their programming for the rest of their life.
And will remain so unless active steps are taken to go in to the metaphoric control room, go into the computer memory bank and delete the negative files and input good ones and mental antivirus software for the brain. Or a better metaphor, because I actually work clients through, and there's in the book, there's these things, QR codes, and they take you directly to interactive videos. And in one of them, I encourage people to get a pillow or a cushion and to close their eyes, and we go through an eyes closed relaxation process to help get into that hypnopompic, hypnagogic state where the critical faculty goes on a coffee break and allows you access to the control room. But we get you to imagine holding the pillow or cushion. So you're genuinely holding that with your eyes closed, but it becomes a multi-psychosensory experience where you can imagine it's almost as if, as you feel yourself hugging that pillow or cushion, that actually you're feeling yourself hugging the 1-year-old you, then the 2-year-old you, then the 3-year-old, then the 4, 5, 6, and we go through the years. And we use elements of what's known as, I can never say this right, so I apologize to practitioners of it, Hoponono, the Hawaiian love and forgiveness ritual. And in our mind's eye, I get people to imagine as they're holding the pillow or cushion, and in the mind's eye, they're seeing it as the 1-year-old, then the 2-year-old. We go through all the years, and to help unfreeze those mini traumas, we as the adults say to the imaginary little us, but we're getting a multi-psychosensory feeling because we're feeling things as well as imagining. We say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now, I've also added on from the Ho'oponopono, I'm here for you now. It's not your fault. You are not to blame. I'm proud of you. Everything's going to be okay now. And it may sound like simple things, but these are very impactful, especially when you're in that relaxed, almost hypnotic state and the psychosensory role plays going on. Any self-blame, shame, guilt, or regret that you've been carrying around, fear, anger, resentment, remorse, and all the negative feelings, emotions, and connections that are surrounding those mini traumas from birth up to around the teenage years, puberty, I kind of say, is when this all gets imprinted. It enables you to let go of all that baggage going through this process and be unfrozen, so that then you kind of do start to react to things, not just consciously going, I want to react this way because I'm an adult, but your unconscious allows you to, because you're no longer running a conflicting program.
Right.
Because whatever's running in the unconscious will always overpower what you think consciously. That's why people relapse.
Right.
You've got
well,
to...
Your conscious is very limited and very critical.
Yeah.
It's, you know, kind of the stupid part of your mind, you know, because it thinks it knows everything, but it really doesn't.
The so-called ego.
Yes.
Whereas your unconscious is the id, if we're going to psychology. Yep. ID being short for your true identity, the true you. Now that could, as we said before, have something missing and feel imbalanced. But if we go through various healing processes, the ones that I found most successful over the past 47 years, I put in my book, Shitnosis, with those videos so that people can interact with them. We can balance those things out so everything replays and in the manner we spoke about before, including, most importantly, unfreezing those child traumas and allowing an individual to walk away with it. It's like a weight's lifted off the shoulders.
Just releasing the baggage, all that trash that you've been carrying on. So you did something, I think it's very wise with your book, because you added these cannibal codes that will lead them to these videos. So tell us about this. Tell us about the book and how does this work?
Okay, the way it works is it's called Shitnosis, helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together. And that's not just a flippant, jokey thing, although it is purposeful that I want to raise a smile. Or maybe for some people, offend them and make them angry. It doesn't matter. I want an emotional change to occur, because it's only through positive manipulation of emotions that we're able to access the parts of ourselves that we need to make the changes, so that physical actions and the way we feel change positively as well in the long term. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. So there has to be some ripple effect. And that can be caused through laughter, which is the direct opposite of fear, or it can be caused through anger or being upset or offended. So I don't care if it offends you, I make no apologies, but for most people it will be that they see it as tongue-in-cheek, because a lot of people do talk about, oh, I wish I could just get over this shit in life, or I'm going through some tough shit at the minute. So it makes it relatable. And I carry on that metaphor through the book. So in the first chapter, it's called How Your Head Got So Full of Shit Plus Why Your Life is Shit Sometimes. And we go into what we talked about, how things got frozen in time and mini traumas affected you and stuff. And there are along the way in every chapter QR codes with videos that give visual illustrations and interactions as well. And then the next one's sit down and relax, let it go. Are you emotionally constipated? The positive mind laxative of self-hypnosis. Teaching you self-hypnosis to literally let go
flush out the stuff.
Exactly. Another metaphor, flushing things out. Exactly.
Flushing things out. And, you know, interesting enough, and I'm sure you experienced this, I know working with my clients doing hypnosis, a lot of times when individuals are releasing the emotion, it usually causes them to go to the bathroom. I have to go
Yeah,
pee.
yeah,
It's the body will physically have a reaction of flushing out of the
yeah.
emotion on a physical scale. So,
100,
you kind of spot on.
100%. I do warn people in the book. I say, when you're doing these exercises, it's probably best, even though there's ones you can do internally on yourself and nobody knows you're doing them, probably best not to do it on the bus, because you might end up wanting to nip to the loo. Make sure you're at home somewhere where you could go to the loo if you needed to. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Then we have self hypnosis. These are just various techniques over the years that I found can help people with habits, addictions, fears, phobias, panic attacks, anxiety, overcoming depression, deal with chronic pain, whole bunch of things. Literally anything you can think of from A through to Z, there's techniques for in this book. The Mind Bleach Mental Antivirus kills all 100% of all negative mind germs. So it's another bathroom metaphor, but it does relate to the processes. Um, Obviously, we've already covered the inner child stuff.
Now, where can individuals find this book?
You will find this on Amazon. If you don't like Jeffrey Bezos, then you can get it from all other bookshops. But if you get it from Amazon, I'll make $1 more profit, because I only make a couple of books. I'm never going to get rich off this book. That's not the intention. This is to help people. And there is no upsell. There is not going to be a volume 2, because literally any technique that has truly consistently proved helpful to me in my own life, but also in helping other clients, is in this book. Or if it's not actually in the book in words, then it's in there by way of QR code you can scan to go to interactive training videos and interactive therapy sessions, such as there is in the SCAT process chapter. Subconsciously charged analytical tapping, enabling you to knock all the negative shit out yourself. This is my version of emotional freedom technique, tapping therapies. There's a process in there that I've found works really well for stuff. And there's a whole bunch of other things. Won't go through them all, but in particular, this is one of the most valuable. The Shithead Protocol. Subconscious human interaction therapy, helping everyone achieve destiny. This teaches you to be able to get ideomotor responses. So you end up being able to communicate with your unconscious mind, so that maybe it will make one of your fingers, maybe this one, just wiggle a little bit or twitch for yes, a different one for no, and one for don't know. So you can have a conversation with your unconscious mind and get permission from it and its help and cooperation to delete all the negative thoughts, feelings, energies, and emotions that have been holding you back, and enable you to instill any new positive software you want for whatever it is. And we give examples for habits, addictions, fears, phobias. We also give examples as well, even if I read this off the back, this one paragraph off the back of the book, even things such as many health issues that are considered by many impossible to help can at the very least be massively improved in terms of your quality of life achieved using these techniques. In other words, I'm not claiming the techniques in this book are going to cure cancer. Heck no, I'm not. But what I do know from experience is that they can help people deal with the pain issues, so they don't have to up their doses of drugs. They can deal with it through the mind-body connection, and it can give them a better quality of life. Now, there are people out there such as Dr. Bruce Lipton, the author of The Biology of Belief, who's provided evidence that when we believe enough, what our mind believes can become reality at a genetic cellular. Yeah.
It manifests in the physical.
I'm not legally allowed to tell you that that's possible, and I'm not legally allowed to claim that either, and neither would I, because even though it's possible, it's unlikely for most people, because the level of belief required will be massive and go against years of conditioning. But sometimes miracles do happen. You read about them in media.
Well, all healing is self-healing. So it's the power of your belief that will bring that miracle to fruition. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming on and sharing your story and sharing, the pains that you went through as a child. And I know it's going to help somebody out there that might be struggling, knowing that there is hope, right? We can come out of whatever it is that we're going through.
There is always hope. Things never remain the same forever, but they can change more rapidly if you change what you're doing as well, and try something different, such as techniques in here.
It just takes action.
Exactly. And remember, there's only one person on this planet you should be competing with. Don't get into that world of the grass is greener on the other side. Heck no. I've met some of the richest people on the planet who appear in the media to have everything, perfection, everything you could ever want, and yet behind closed doors, away from the publicist, they're some of the unhappiest, most insecure people you could ever meet, because they haven't dealt. It's all illusionary. True happiness comes from within, feeling comfortable in your skin, in your body. And the best way to achieve that is through only competing with yourself, so that today you do the best you can to be better than the person you were yesterday, and so on.
Absolutely. And all it takes, a lot of times, and I tell individuals this all the time, we're always waiting for the emotion to come, right? When I feel better, then I'll do this and that. It takes action. Just take action. Just take that one step. Get out of bed.
Because doing that step will actually help you feel better.
Yes.
And that's been scientifically fully proven. If you were feeling down and depressed, you have probably anchored the way that your body position is, the chair you're sat in. You perfected being depressed. You've got really good at it. So do something differently. Sit in a different chair, or move that chair to a different position in the room. Move the telly. So you've changed the position. So it's not what the routine expects. So that it will, for a short while, be uncomfortable and weird. But that weirdness can be good, because you're not just reacting on autopilot. You can actually pay more attention to the fact that, everything's not quite as shit as you were thinking it was.
That's right.
And start to build on those positive wins.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for sharing that wisdom. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please like the videos, the podcast. Please share and subscribe so I get you more of these wonderful stories to you every week. So until next week.